I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. I want to show you what went down on the floor of the House of Representatives, where this Democratic Party that has found its groove is just fighting for the American people the way I wish they always had in the past. Their messaging is on point, their policies are on point, and the way they are calling out MAGA hypocrisy, could it be better? Let's start off with this clip of Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, talking about how House Republicans lack an economic plan that is responsible. Play the clip.
But we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for the grand Republican plan. And here it is, the so-called RAIN Act. 3 pages. 3 pages. What does it call for? Reports. Reports. It's the grand Republican economic plan. Why? Because you've been focused on the wrong things. Now, House Democrats, we're going to continue to invest in the American people, invest in education and job training, invest in transportation and infrastructure, invest in research and development, invest in technology and innovation, invest in the creation and preservation of affordable housing, invest in the health, the safety, the economic well-being of the American people. That's our plan. We're going to continue to put people over politics. And we get 3 pages calling for reports. The so-called Rein In Act. Here's what we should be reining in. We should be reining in the extreme MAGA Republican effort to cut Social Security. We should rein in the extreme MAGA Republican effort to cut Medicare. Rein in the extreme MAGA Republican effort to criminalize reproductive freedom and impose a nationwide ban. Rein in the extreme MAGA Republican effort to crash the United States economy and default on our debt for the first time in American history. We should be reining in your effort to hand over sensitive security footage from the January 6th violent insurrection to an avowed conspiracy theorist. That's what we should be reining in.
That was so good. Now watch this clip of Democratic Congress member Sean Casten talk about how it seems like all the MAGA Republicans just pick losers all the time. Play the clip.
Let me dumb this down for you all. 10 years ago, if you shifted your investment portfolio away from fossil energy towards climate-friendly investments, you would be richer today. Now, my Republican colleagues, you all talk a good game about how you're into personal freedom, and yet you are taking individual investors' freedom away from them with this bill. You all talk a good game about how government should not be picking winners and losers. Why do you all keep picking losers? 2011, a guy named Hugo Chavez, he redirected Venezuelan oil worker pensions into a Ponzi scheme running by a political ally. And now my Republican colleagues, who a couple of weeks ago voted to oppose socialism in all its forms, are thinking that Hugo Chavez guy seems pretty smart. Let's do the same thing. You know what you call capitalism when you're losing? Woke capitalism. So, if you all are afraid of free markets, if you want to destroy workers' pensions, if you oppose individual freedom, if you want to force your constituents to invest in proven losers, then please vote for this resolution. Be honest about your values. For everyone else, vote no. I plan to do so proudly and honestly. Yield back.
Speaking of losers, here is MAGA Republican Chip Roy just yelling and tilting at windmills. Here, play this clip.
And what is this side of the aisle doing about it? Not a damned thing. What is this side of the aisle doing about open borders? Nothing. Nothing. What is this side of the aisle doing about an ATF rule about to make felons out of 10 million Americans or more? Nothing. What is this side of the aisle going to do about spending? Lip service. We have a debt ceiling approaching. We're running around like chickens with their heads cut off. We should say something right now. We should pass a bill off this floor saying that we will raise the debt ceiling, but only if you end the disastrous student loans that are going to cost $400 billion and drive up the cost of higher ed, only if you rescind the $91 billion of unobligated COVID money, only if you go rescind the $80 billion designed to increase the IRS to go after taxpayers.
And really, the all-star of the Democratic Party, it's like watching LeBron James in his prime, but here on the House floor, Jamie Raskin just delivering some gems. This is Jamie Raskin saying that, look, at the end of the day here, we got to deal with responsible policies, please, and a reporting requirement related to a handful of executive orders every year. That's how the GOP wants to respond to inflation. Here, play this clip.
After 2 years of rooting for economic failure and blaming President Biden for everything, for post-COVID global inflation, for the instability caused by supply chain breakdowns and the phenomenal failure of Donald Trump's mismanagement of the coronavirus pandemic, after all that, after all the whining and crying about inflation, Republicans finally have the chance to take center stage right now with their proposed solution to the problem of inflation. And the world's been waiting with bated breath. Would it be what Richard Nixon did? Wage and price controls? Would it be what Herbert Hoover, that Republican, did? Total laissez-faire? Whatever happens, happens. Well, the long wait is over. The GOP has now debuted their big plan for dealing with inflation in America with H.R. 347, something called the Rein-In Act, which stands for the Reduce Exacerbated Inflation Negatively Impacting the Nation Act. It's a bill for a mandatory reporting requirement related to executive orders that might apply to 2 or 3 executive orders a year. You got that right. A reporting requirement related to a handful of executive orders every year is the GOP's response to inflation after barnstorming the entire country, claiming that they had some kind of solution. Now, you might think it's the most brilliant thing since the invention of Social Security, which they opposed, or Medicare, which they opposed, or you might think it's the dumbest thing since Donald Trump's last $1 trillion corporate tax giveaway. But either way, it will have zero effect on inflation or deflation in the United States of America. Nothing. It's not going to have any effect at all. Now,
here is Jamie Raskin again, this time pointing out that, frankly, President Biden has created an economic miracle out of the chaos that was handed to him by Donald Trump. Play the clip.
2020, inflation has risen worldwide, exacerbated by supply chain delays caused by the pandemic, and then Vladimir Putin's filthy war of aggression in Ukraine, which some of our friends over there support. President Biden has created something like an economic miracle out of the chaos handed to him by Donald Trump. After signing his massive tax giveaway, Trump's failed state dysfunctional response to COVID plunged America into its most severe economic contraction since 1946. Someone dispute that. The unemployment rate rose to 14.8% under Donald Trump, the highest on record since the Bureau of Labor Statistics began collecting data in 1948. And in 2021, Biden and the Democrats got to work. We passed the American Rescue Plan, which fueled a strong, equitable economic recovery with historic reductions in unemployment, in poverty, and economic hardship. Real GDP increased by 5.7%. The unemployment rate decreased to 4%, surpassing all forecasts. Wages increased by 5%, with the highest increases going to lower economic income earners. So, Democratic policies have allowed the U.S. to absorb the shock of rising inflation engulfing the globe since 2020. That's serious economic policy, what President Biden and the Democrats are engaged in, and they have a silly little symbolic messaging bill for a couple of notations they didn't even want to publish originally within the process of offering executive orders. Meantime, 30 seconds.
Here we got a clip of AOC explaining that MAGA Republicans don't even know how to draft bills because the way they even drafted it would not even allow it to be enforceable, even if they tried. Play the clip.
And I'll start my remarks today by saying how ironic it is that we spent and Republicans spent the entire first week of this session entangled in a fight in order for them to get the votes to secure a Speaker of the House. And the whole crux of that entanglement was, and part of it was, rules to maintain regular order in the House. Rules to maintain regular order. Because just as we go back to Schoolhouse Rock, you introduce a bill, it's supposed to go to committee, you get a markup on that committee, a hearing in that committee, a vote in that committee, and if that bill can survive a committee vote, it comes right here to the floor of this House. And we spent a whole week tied up in the beginning of this term trying to reassert that order. And then today, one of the first acts that we have from this oversight committee is to subvert that, because perhaps they knew that this would not survive their own committee. And so it goes straight to the floor for a vote, subverting all of those arguments that Republicans were making about restoring order to this House. But let's get into the substance of this bill. Ironically, if they had gone into this order, if they had gone through regular order, they may have caught that this bill does nothing to rein in inflation, in part because in their haste to put it together, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle committed an incredibly basic drafting error that makes this bill completely unenforceable. Even if we agreed on their ends, the haste and the rush to put this together and skip committee has created a drafting error that doesn't even make this bill enforceable.
We got another clip of Jamie Raskin explaining that the gentleman would like to somehow put in our court the burden of bureaucracy. Let's talk about the major bureaucracy that's being put in place in America today to violate the rights and freedom of women to make their own medical decisions. Play this clip of Jamie Raskin responding to a MAGA Republican.
Gentleman from Maryland, my friend from Maryland, talks about increased bureaucracy, the increased bureaucracy of informing the American people. My goodness, I've never heard that from my friends on the other side of the aisle, increased bureaucracy. I mean, all they do around here is infuse more government into our lives with every single thing they do. He talks about the medical situation and price fixing. He doesn't call it price fixing, but that's what it is. It's price fixing.
I think he was describing all of the lowering of prescription drug prices we've done. We're saving Americans across the country, millions of Americans, thousands of dollars in their Medicare prescription drug prices. And the gentleman just called that price fixing. I assume he's opposed to it. I'd be happy to yield if you want to correct me, but otherwise I'm going to go back with the conclusion that you're opposed to all of the lowering of prescription drug prices that the Congress actually engaged in the 117th Congress. And finally, the gentleman would like to somehow put in our court the burden of bureaucracy. Well, let's talk about the major bureaucracy that's being put in place in America today to violate the rights and the freedom of women to make their own medical decisions as they try to criminalize that. And most of them, I don't know exactly where the gentleman is, perhaps he can clarify it, most of them support a national ban on abortion, taking what was a constitutional right for more than a half century and turning it into a felony criminal offense or misdemeanor criminal offense. You want to talk about bureaucracy?
Time's expired.
You want to talk about a police state? That's on you. I yield back.
Here is Jamie Raskin to Lauren Boebert. Remember, Lauren Boebert wants everybody to call the Republicans ultra MAGA. That's what she said. And this is Jamie Raskin explaining. I heard the very distinguished gentle lady from Colorado. The way he says it is so good. I heard the very distinguished gentle lady from Colorado mention job creators. So I assume she is talking about President Biden. Play the clip.
I want to just clear up a couple things. First, I heard the very distinguished gentlelady from Colorado mention job creators. I assume she was responding to President Biden, since 12 million new jobs have been created under President Biden, whereas millions of jobs were lost under the prior president, who may be a favorite of the gentleladies. I also wanted to...
Again, another clip from Jamie Raskin, again, who is operating at an all-star level right now. He always does, but some incredible stuff to watch. We're all fortunate to be able to witness what's taking place right now. This is history in the making. This is Congressman Jamie Raskin saying that it doesn't seem like MAGA Republicans are talking about unemployment anymore. Play the clip.
Since basically they're scraping the bottom to try to figure out something to say about inflation, because the administration is actually bringing inflation down. Now, we notice they don't talk about unemployment, which used to be their mantra, jobs, jobs, jobs. But when Joe Biden came back and created 12 million new jobs after the last administration destroyed millions of jobs with their lethal recklessness in the mismanagement of the coronavirus pandemic, and Joe Biden turned it around in this administration, they stopped talking about it. But they did notice that there was global inflation going on because of the disruption of the global supply chain and because of Vladimir Putin's filthy imperialist invasion of Ukraine, which some of their members actually are cheerleaders for. There was a real problem with inflation, and the administration has steadily been bringing it down, which is why it doesn't have quite the political salience it used to. But the world was waiting with bated breath to determine what would their actual plan be. And alas, their whole plan is a reporting requirement, nothing to do with Congress and Congress being able to do anything, but a reporting requirement for the president when he issues executive orders. I think the public is gravely disappointed by this complete collapse of any real commitment to the one issue they thought they had organized their conference around. I reserve.
Oh, and don't talk negative about Maryland, where Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin is from. And he says, seriously, the MAGA Republican from Pennsylvania, you're talking bad about Maryland? Let me tell you a thing or two about Maryland. Play the clip.
There's much left to say on the substance of this amendment. I did hear my colleague from Pennsylvania make some sort of disparaging remark about Maryland and about how he didn't live in Maryland, where apparently we don't understand the value of money. Well, the land where we actually are standing today used to be part of Maryland. It was ceded by Maryland to Congress for the purposes of creating the District of Columbia. And when our capital came under attack by violent insurrectionists and those who were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence," and who were determined to overthrow the 2020 presidential election, there were hundreds of police officers who came from Maryland to join the Metropolitan Police Department and the Capitol officers in defense of the capital of the United States. So I take umbrage at any insinuation that the people of Maryland need to take a backseat to anybody in terms of the defense of the principles of this country. So I would thank Mr. Perry for a correction about that, and I'm happy to reserve the remainder of my time.
Again, another clip here from Congressmember Jamie Raskin talking about how y'all MAGA Republicans, you raised the debt limit 3 times under Donald Trump and contributed under Donald Trump to 25% of all of the debt in the United States, from George Washington to President Joe Biden. And they did it, and now they dare come to talk to us about inflation. This is how Democrats push back on the disinformation. Play the clip.
We created 12 million new jobs in America. How many million jobs do they want to erase over there in their desperate, sudden pursuit of inflation? You know, they raised the debt limit 3 times under Donald Trump. Now they talk about the debt limit all the time. They raised it 3 times, and they contributed under Donald Trump 25% of all the debt in the United States from George Washington to Joe Biden. 25% of the debt under one president, Donald Trump. And they did that. And now they dare come talk to us about inflation. And the bill that they advance is one to have some people pass some more paperwork around. Come on, give me a break. Give us something better than the running on empty initiative with no new ideas at all. We recommend a no vote. What real economic action requires is precisely what President Biden is already doing.
Oh, in this moment where Lauren Boebert tells everybody to refer to her and the Republicans as ultra MAGA, then watch what Hakeem Jeffries and Jamie Raskin say. Play the clip.
That was great. You know, we are addressed as MAGA extremists, extreme MAGA Republicans, and I would like to make just a clarification point. It's ultra MAGA. That's what we prefer. Yes.
And we get 3 pages. calling for reports. The so-called Rein In Act. Here's what we should be reining in. We should be reining in the extreme MAGA Republican effort to cut Social Security. We should rein in the extreme MAGA Republican effort to cut Medicare. Rein in the extreme MAGA Republican effort to criminalize reproductive freedom and impose a nationwide ban. Rein in the extreme MAGA Republican effort to crash the United States economy and default on our debt for the first time in American history. We should be reining in your effort to hand over sensitive security footage from the January 6th violent insurrection to an avowed conspiracy theorist. That's what we should be reining in.
And yet the gentle lady from Colorado said, if I understood it correctly, that she would continue with her deliberate mispronunciation of the name of our party in its adjectival form. And by the way, she took the opportunity to raise the whole question of MAGA, which I had not mentioned. And she said, and when you call me MAGA, don't call me MAGA, call me Ultra MAGA. So when the minority leader referred to the extreme MAGA element, which appears to be driving the train over there, he should have called it the Ultra MAGA element out of deference to the gentlelady from Colorado. And I certainly will be able to honor her wishes in the future as she chooses to be described as Ultra MAGA. And with that, I'll reserve.
And finally, here is Congressmember Jamie Raskin saying, look, if you don't know how to say democratic, if you don't know how to say it, then I'll make it simple for you. Just call us democracy. Play the clip.
You know, we started this series of amendments by talking about the fact that they have this self-imposed political speech impediment. They can't correctly pronounce the name of our party in its adjectival form. But you know, I thought of a solution to this because I was reading a great book by H.W. Brand about Franklin D. Roosevelt called Traitor to His Class. And in the book, he's got a bunch of Roosevelt's speeches. And you know what President Roosevelt called our party? Not the Democratic Party, much less the Democrat Party. If you can't pronounce it, do what Roosevelt did. He called us the democracy. The democracy. He said, the economic royalists, the corporate plutocrats, say you invest in the wealthiest people in society, some of the wealth will trickle down on everybody else. But the democracy says you invest in the great working middle class of America, we will all rise and prosper together. That's the doctrine of the democracy. If you can't pronounce the name of our party, just call us the democracy. That's what we are today, because we defend the right to vote, and we defend free and fair elections, and we stand by the results of elections. And we defend not only the country and our democratic allies all over the world, as in Ukraine, we defend this body. We defend this chamber. We defend the capital of the United States. And we defend the interests of the working majority of Americans. So the American people are not asking for more reports and more bureaucracy. They're asking for action. And that's what the Biden administration and Democrats in Congress are giving them.
And that, folks, is how you do it. The 118th Congress, we are seeing Democrats, the Democratic Party, representing decency, compassion, intelligence, and actually focusing on the issues. And, you know, more so than ever in history, the contrast couldn't be more clear, right? The contrast between what the Democratic Party is saying and what the MAGA Republicans are saying couldn't be more clear. And frankly, it's an honor to watch this play out. It really is. And American people need to focus on these videos. They need to focus on what's going on here. It's vital. That's why we'll keep on showing it here on the MeidasTouch Network. I'm Ben Meiselas. Make sure you hit subscribe. We're marching to 1 million subscribers in the month of March. March to 1 million with us. Hit subscribe. Also, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch and subscribe to the MeidasTouch podcast on audio. Wherever you get your audio, just search MeidasTouch podcast. Search it right now. Check it out. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Until next time.
The best part of waking up? MAGA tears in my cup. Check out the new MAGA tears mug available now at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com. It's 100% union made right here in the USA. I know I'm not tired of winning yet. How about you? Get yours today.